Hi, hello, welcome. This is from A to B, presented to you by Osmo.com. Wednesday edition. This is the grab bag for now. Ben, what's happening? What's happening, friend? How are you?
Nothing much. Hump day, just I don't know. Wednesdays are weird. We're in the middle. NFL is not close enough where I'm like really digging in, and golf is winding down with the year. I am getting ready to attack my 30 man by building lineups later today, but at the same time kind of enjoying a day where it's not, a huge sweat. There's nothing to play tonight for me with not playing baseball, so hanging in there.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to today, basically, we'll do a little bit of golf updating. We're not going to do the Wednesday night show tonight because there's not going to be enough news to really get into. So a little bit of golf updating. We'll see what's going on there. We'll talk about news. We got a couple big sort of, news items for both some sports stuff and some DFS stuff, which will lean us towards the NBA season because that's what Wednesdays are usually going to be when that gets going. We also then we'll probably spend sort of, half an hour on first look at NFL, what's kind of standing out to us so far. Sound good to you, man?
I like it.
Sound good to you people out there?
Great. I think they like it. So
we got Josh back too. Welcome back, buddy.
Yeah, the full team is back in action. Dan filled in admirably, very clutch.
Yeah, but it's nice out of here now. No more Dan.
Nice to have Josh back. Yeah. So where do you want to start? You want to start with the 30-man golf? You want to start with the news? What do you think?
Let's do the news, right? We got I'm excited. I like basketball a lot. We got two sort of big ones, DFS news and an NBA news. So you get to pick which one you want to start with.
Well, you know what? You're an NBA guy. I'll pass it right back to you. Let's talk NBA news. What you got?
Okay, well, Jimmy Butler requested a trade.
Yep.
And then there was a list of 3 teams, which came out just a couple minutes ago, that it's going to be either your boys, the Knicks, the Nets, and the Clippers are the 3 teams he apparently has requested to go to. New York and LA, I get that. You would have thought the Lakers would have been on his short list. I don't know about his fit. I mean, whatever. They'd figure it out, but his fit with LeBron is a little weird. LeBron is someone you want with a lot of shooters. Butler and Andrew Wiggins do not work well together. And that's, as much as anything that we found out this season, finally, like, I think it was heading that way for a while, but I think people are all in on, like, Wiggins just isn't good now. But I don't know. Butler is much more of he's very good with the ball in his hands, blah, 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 blah. I'm rambling. So are you excited as a Knicks fan to maybe get Jimmy Butler? Do you think it's going to happen?
Cautiously optimistic, like most Knicks fans with anything, because it's the Knicks. That would be good. I mean, great two-way player. My first thought was just not that they ever had a window, but if they even had a crack, the Timberwolves are just borderline about to be.
Yeah, poor guys.
It seemed like they had some, with Towns leading the way, it could have been promising.
They still have is where I'm out of the loop. No, he's clearly the best offensive center in the league. If he were to even become an average defensive center, he would be the best center in the league, and he's 22. So that's a nice piece to build around. I think Butler and Towns didn't really get along too. Is I think a big part of this. So we'll see. Butler is you feel bad for the Wolves because Butler is not going to really recoup a whole lot in a trade. He's got a player option for next year, but he's essentially an expiring contract. He'll opt out of that because that'll be entering his age 30 season. He's going to want some security there. He probably won't try to get a 4-year deal or something. So, I'm not sure what you can get for Jimmy Butler. It's going to look weird. People are going to be, I think, disappointed in how much they do get back.
And it's one of those situations, the longer it goes, the more leverage other teams are going to have over the Wolves because they know that if they wait, they're going to get nothing. So
at the All-Star break, it's going to be like the Knicks are going to offer Enes Kanter's expiring contract and a second-round pick, and the Wolves are going to have to start thinking seriously about it.
Yeah, we've seen this before, obviously with different players, but it's tricky spot. And we've also seen teams. It's like, oh, I'm going to be spiteful and hold on and wait. Like, well, if you hold on too long, then you just end up punishing yourself.
And this is different when he got traded from the Bulls a couple of years ago, because then he had 3 years left on his deal or whatever, 2.5 years left on his deal. And now he's got 1 year left on his deal. So
and it's tough. It's tough to go we were talking a little before the show, and I think it's hard to go the rental route with the Warriors, because like what team is really like, you know what, I'm going to roll the dice, get Jimmy Butler and make a run at it. Who could that even be at this point?
Right. Because let's not forget, like even the Paul George rental situation, like that, what the Thunder gave up, Oladipo and Sabonis were afterthoughts. Those were guys that no one wanted. They had already, like Oladipo turned himself into a superstar. Sabonis looks like a really nice backup center. That was not what it looked like at all last offseason when that trade happened.
That is not what they intended the result of that to be on, what they gave out. And it worked out good for everyone, kind of. Russell, my man, hopefully he's all right with his little knee scope. But it's just tricky. It's a tricky spot. As a Knicks fan, there's the glimmer of hope that they can lure Jimmy Butler, maybe I was saying Kyrie, maybe even, and form some type of super three tandem, big three, because it wasn't that long ago when like the Melo Amari Stoudemire was going to be the savior duo, and that crashed and burned as fast as it got created.
Tyson Chandler, buddy, they got their third, made it a big three.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Amari punching the fire extinguisher against LeBron in the Heat, and that was the pinnacle of that. And
that was a gross fit too, though. Like those players.
No one was beating those Heat teams anyway, but yeah, not ideal.
No, I mean probably not, and I mean Amari was one of those guys too, where he was. I don't know how much people remember how amazing Amari was in the Suns days. He was just so athletic. He was like super Capella or something. He's the best like role finisher I can think of ever seeing. He was just, especially with that Steve Nash pick and roll, he was just so dangerous when he crashed to the hoop like that, and just like such a monster athletically.
Now he has no kneeless. Right.
So it went fast. That's why it went so fast for him, because he was so reliant on athleticism. Unlike, Carmelo, like he can still. It's a bad example the decline on Carmelo has actually been slower than people think. I think. Does that make sense? He couldn't play defense a long time ago. It wasn't until recently that people started realizing that, oh, you actually can't have a single person out there that can't play defense, or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But Jimmy Butler is not really worth like what, so like the Clippers, like if Wolves fans that are thinking, hey, they could get those 2 first-round picks, kids from the Clippers with like the Marcin Gortat contract, like that ain't happening. So
with you there.
It's going to be a bummer. Okay, so that's NBA. That's the big news there.
I was just going to say, you said this before the show, but it's worth noting. NBA's coming pretty fast. We're definitely going to slide this. That's going to be the normal talking points of the Wednesday show. It's just a little early to dive fully into NBA for a full show, but I am excited to get into it, in full.
Yeah,
soon.
Me too. Yeah, we've been real busy with NFL, but we'll start getting ready. I think Eddie actually is starting to do some shows breaking down some of the teams. Yeah, that'll be cool. It's always fun to listen to Eddie talk. Then there's a big NBA DFS news item.
Yes.
Late swap is back.
Late swap is back on DraftKings. I was kind of surprised, not gonna lie. I didn't even think that was being considered.
Yeah, I didn't either. As someone who was in there, yeah, and a 1%er of like DFS interest, I'm not into this really, to be honest with you.
Ooh, I thought you would, to be honest. Now that you're on the West Coast, and
yeah, it's being on the West Coast makes it even easier. And I don't want to. It's rugged. There's not that much edge in it, is I guess what I'm saying, because everyone does it. Like if you're in these contests, it's not like you're playing with a bunch of idiots. It's NBA. It's a shark pool.
Well, that's the thing. They can. For me, there's no chance that I'm gaining anything. I'm just losing with every permutation after lock. Like they can. I will just tone down my volume, and I'll only play when I can stay active, because if you don't, you're in trouble. I know I've seen this floating around Twitter, and I 100% agree. There's a large mass of people who want late swap and they don't realize that it's actually hurting them.
Yeah.
Taking a zero sucks, but you know what? Nobody, not even the sharks, can control the zero. So you're just ramping up variance there. Whereas late swap, if you can't late swap correctly, you're hurting yourself while they are maximizing the value of it.
And it's just, yeah, all it is going to do is, in a game like the NBA, where it's what makes it harder than the other sports is the fact that it's more predictable. There is not as much variance, which means that when you're playing a game where the house is taking 15% off of the top in the first place, you're like, the more variance there is, the more it becomes like you're trying to beat the best of the best of the best in a 1v1 or a 2v2. And that's not cool. That's not fun. Like, I've found, to be honest with you, and like, I am a data-driven guy. Like, I use a lot of that stuff. I'm pretty good with the NBA. It's just I can't beat, like, when there's a game that's, even at higher stakes, when they're taking 10% off the top, that means you have to beat some guy who also does this professionally 55% of the time in like a 2v2. Like, that's not going to happen. I think NBA Cash, which was already really, really tough, and I think unbeatable, is just like, I'm not even going to bother now. But I thought in tournaments, a lot of the fun, like a lot of the edges you could get, were speculating on injuries on West Coast games when it locked at 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock Eastern, and there's a 10 o'clock game where you don't know what's going to happen injury wise. It's one of those situations where when people don't know what's happening in DFS, they generally tend to avoid it. And that's a variant situation, which you want to hop on. And that's one of those things where you can get over on both sides. We talk about that a lot. You can be over on the field on the pitcher and the opposing offense. And sometimes it's a good idea to do both of those when it's a very high variance outcome. An injury in the NBA, if you don't know if, whatever, Julius Randle's going to play tonight, you can speculate that he's going to play and he's underpriced if he does for his role because he's been out for a week. And if he doesn't, then you've got, there's multiple avenues you can go at there. And
it's true. That's something that's not talked about enough, actually, where if you can, and that's it all, like most things, it goes back to, you need a bankroll and you need to embrace that there are going to be nights that you play a guy who does not play. But that's okay. In the long run, you can gain edge by exploiting what you're saying. You're rolling the dice with the red Q next to a guy's name, and you're getting it. There's going to be nights where you get a guy at 6% who would have been 30%, and it's just because of that, the fact that we don't know that. Now, you're not going to be able to do that because everyone is going to wait. And if you are not by your computer and you're not moving all the puzzle pieces, a lot of people think late swap, it's just like, oh, well, if this guy scratches, I take his backup. That is not how it works at all. You need to re-optimize everything, and a lot of pieces change. And if you're not doing that, you're going to be in worse trouble than you were without late swap.
And you might have screwed yourself without even knowing it if you didn't anticipate this injury, if you played too many early guys. Like, that's another, you're going to want to leave as many options open to you as possible. Maybe that's where you get an edge early on. I don't know. It's
going to be with DraftKings also going, with multi-positional eligibility. It's going to be real. I'm just thinking kind of through my own lens. It's tough. It's going to be very difficult to catch up.
Your way of doing it is going to be brutal.
I'm aware of that, and I'll just mitigate it by doing specific things because there's no way that I could do it. You build 25 teams by hand. There's no chance that you're late swapping effectively without, tools.
Right. Especially if you've got, 50 golf lineups on your page all weekend. NFL, and filter still doesn't work. No. It's, that's really irritating. And the thing, okay, so I don't know, I feel like we're being super negative about this, but the NBA is hard because it's easier. It's easier for everyone. Everyone is really good at predicting NBA players. When some guy is saying that's my best sport, it's like, do you mean that it's your best sport in picking the players correctly, or you mean it's your best sport in terms of profitability? Because it's my best sport in terms of picking the players correctly too, but it's really hard to be profitable in it. And it's really hard to be unique. So, like, tournament winning lineups in the NBA most nights are 5, 6 chalk pieces and like a couple weird ones. It's not like baseball where you can play a 0.5% owned stack and get insane leverage on the field that way. It's just not really how it works. The NBA, you're forced into certain decisions. And I think what people don't realize is having late swap gives you less flexibility. It forces you into more decisions because there are going to be news items that come out after lock that are going to force your hand into you had better play this person or you're just dead already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, NBA, and of course there's exceptions to this, but on the whole, if you're in a tournament, especially if it's higher stakes, and roster's lock and your guy's 0.5%, you probably made a mistake, to be honest. Like, there are things with other sports where golf, especially where there's so much variance. I see a guy like that, it's like, okay, I'm not afraid of that. In NBA, if you see that, it's kind of hard to imagine that you're seeing something that effective that nobody else has realized. Most likely you've taken a weird stance that's not getting there.
Yeah, it's usually not going to work. Unless, like in the way to get one over, especially at higher stakes, is, this guy's questionable tonight. He hasn't played in a week. His price tag's gone down. I found this piece of info on Twitter. It becomes more of a college football kind of game where I found out that it sounds like he's going to play tonight, and no one else knew that. And then he's, 1.5% owned, especially at higher stakes, because that really does become like, a team that doesn't cash versus the winning GPP team could be a 1v1 at higher stakes.
It's going to be, yeah. I just think that whether you like late swap or not, the important thing for people watching is make sure you're aware of what it truly does. No more zeros, and that's great. But if you're not going to utilize it effectively, take the night off. Like, not try to set it. Because, again, I said this before. It's not just, none of my guys are hurt, I'm good. Not necessarily. Like, if there are injuries in games that you are not touching, you may, like Andrew was just alluding to, it's unlike other sports. You're basically forced into certain permutations and that is why people think it's their best sport. If I had, golf is clearly my best DFS sport, but if I had to pick a sport and a situation to get a guy right, it would obviously come from basketball. The flat min point guard who's going to see 35 minutes, he gets there a disproportionate amount of time relative to the other sports' perfect situation. And that's just the way it is.
Yep. And unless you think that you are better than Piano Club and Empire Maker and Makasupa, variance is your friend. And removing late swap removes some of the variance. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that fun. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, obviously there's positives to it. I think we all agree that having an awesome start and having Anthony Davis sit and taking a 0 is a killer. It's hard not to, in those moments, say, God, I wish I could just swap him out. But really,
you can't swap him out after the game starts either. Like what if a guy twists an ankle? Like that's still going to happen
too. But you know what I'm saying. There are plenty of times where the 8:30 game, you could swap them. But for every one of those, it's not as many as people think, of course. Everyone remembers when that happens. There's a million nights where it's not your guy and you have a super leg up in a GPP because you dodged a 25%, DNP. And those are gone too, don't forget.
Yep.
But
there were a couple classic Kawhi situations. I remember getting burned by one. I think I had some, I had a really sick, like, whatever. And I would not trade that in. I would rather not have late swap. I will take that. That's going to happen every once in a while. But you know what? Yeah, exactly. Because those happen to everyone.
That's what I'm saying. No sharp. It doesn't matter how sharp you are. You can't predict that.
Yep. Piano Club is going to get hit by last minute scratches. Piano Club is not going to get hit by last minute changes to projections, and he will be on top of that.
And I won't. I don't know about the rest of you. I certainly won't.
I literally do, like, my full-time job is to run projections for a daily fantasy site, and I will not be able to be on top. I can't compete with those guys, Yep, it is. NFL Week 3 coming up. Got Browns and Jets tomorrow night.
Ooh, yeah, I know. I really my Monday to Thursday teams were not great. So I really need a big Tyrod, like throw 4 touchdowns kind of game for me.
Gross. All right, let's
Yeah.
talk about that with Laffy tomorrow night. We don't need to talk about Jets Browns. Let's talk. You got any full slate excitement, or do you want to? You can talk about Jets Browns if you want.
No, I mean, well, I was
Such a sick game.
First thoughts on. I mean, I know it's early and ownership's not the greatest thing to talk about early, but is Mahomes going to be like?
Yes.
Okay, this is terrible.
And he's the number one value in the projections this week, and he wasn't the first couple weeks. San Francisco's defense is bad. He's shown, it's starting after one game. I wasn't going to be like, all right, Mahomes is averaging, 12 yards per attempt. Like, I wasn't really buying that. I'm still, you're not buying that, but I'm putting some of the data in. It's like 20% is what he's done this season, and then 80% is his sort of 7.5 baseline I gave him beforehand.
Can you just talk about a little, because I don't know the answer to this. How does your projection go about doing something with a guy like Josh Allen or someone who really has no data points?
I often will look at other sort of season-long projections and other people I trust just to get a baseline of where this starts, and then as the data pulls in, like it depends. Like there's certain things, like in baseball, I have sort of a minor league numbers translation to major league numbers system, but I don't have one from college to the pros for NFL.
It wouldn't. Yeah. College football, it's tough.
Yeah, well, it's hard. I mean, it's like that in minor league baseball too, where like the Pacific Coast League is very different than the
Cactus.
Yeah, whatever. And the NFL, the college is like that too. But there's just, I mean, how many Division I teams? 200, 250,
like 130.
Yeah, exactly. 316. It would be impossible to get all 427 of those teams like properly rated out. Just not going to do it. Anyway, Mahomes looks great. Looks really good through two weeks. Hasn't done it to a real defense yet. Not that, we'll see. Not San Francisco's not a real defense though, so I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah. No, I'm just fine is not it's just me. I'm gonna play some Niners defense, I think. Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to play a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo when I'm stacking that game because I think that, Kansas City's defense is even worse than San Francisco's.
I will say, one of the things that stuck out, and this is probably just everyone else is going to be like, what is wrong with this person? But I don't know if I've ever really been over on Alvin Kamara. This is a week where I really think I'm jumping in first time.
Oh, yeah?
I never do that because I think he's been consistently getting there in somewhat suboptimal spots based on these touches. And I think regression is coming, but I'm really buying in that the Falcons losing Deion Jones to run. I mean, McCaffrey last week was one of the few things that I really got right. He just couldn't find the end zone. And I wouldn't be stunned to see, we've seen Kamara do this all the time, just to rack up so many catches and the way how electric he is. The only thing that you're concerned about is volume.
Yeah, but I think volume should go up. It's, Atlanta famously gives up 1 million catches to running backs, but it's not just Atlanta. Seattle and Jacksonville, the teams that run that cover 3 scheme, they all 3 of those, because those are all from the Seattle coaching tree, the defensive guys there. Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator during the big Legion of Boom start. So all of those teams do funnel passes towards the running back. That's just kind of how the scheme operates because, there's 3 guys back, each patrolling part of the field generally. So
the guy chasing Kamara is just not there. I mean, it's Deion.
Right. And Deion Jones really helped Atlanta be able to do that even better, where it's like, okay, you can catch 1 million passes, but you're going to get tackled right away. They're in some trouble now. We got a couple questions from the chat.
Fire them away. I don't have
MFA. I don't know. NAEE MFA. Do you guys like Football Outsiders? Yeah, I think they're cool. I think they do cool stuff. DVOA is a pretty tough to.
No, I don't. But it sounds cool.
Yeah, it's neat. I mean, you're familiar with the concept of DVOA, right?
I know it's
You've heard the
some
stat
type of
mentioned.
metric based
Yeah,
on like it adjusts for all the stuff, but again, I have no idea how it's calculated.
I have trouble using something like that because I'm not shown what goes into it, and I think a lot of people will just blindly say this guy's first in DVOA, and it's like, well, what does DVOA mean? So I don't love that. I use other things more now that there are other. Now that I've spent a couple years sort of developing my own stuff, and there's other sites that I think explain it a little better. Um, but I think it's cool. I think Aaron Schatz is really smart. I think it's a really cool product. They were way ahead of the game as far as like doing sort of the football advanced analytics or whatever. I should not. I hate the term advanced analytics. But anyway, moving on. How do you feel about M. Goodwin?
You gonna use them in your Jimmy?
Yeah, he's a burner, and the Chiefs play cover one man. So he's going to get some single coverage looks. Marquise Goodwin is as fast as
all the time. He could get zero. He could catch one ball and get there because it's probably a 70-yard touchdown.
Yeah. But that cover one man, like the way that Kansas City plays defense versus the way Pittsburgh plays defense, I was less into Tyreek last week because Tyreek was not going to have that. I've got one man to beat, and then it's off to the races. Marquise Goodwin is going to have, I've got one man to beat, and that's off to the races. Antonio Brown often last week had, I've got one man to beat, and then it's off to the races. Then he beat the guy, then Ben overthrew him by 5 yards. That happened 2 or 3 times. Ben played kind of shitty in that game. I watched a little of that back.
Yeah, I watched the game, and he did. I mean, he obviously got his, but it was certainly not efficient. It wasn't crisp. There was a lot of potential there, not just for Antonio Brown, for other guys too, where he missed them in certain spots.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, Kansas City's defense. There was something about KC's D was better because of how good their O is. That can happen. Their defense played awfully in that Pittsburgh game. They got bailed out by some really bad Ben throws. I think the Steelers still should have won that game. AK as good as TC. Alvin Kamara as good as Tevin Coleman.
Different price points, so it is conceptually tough to gauge. I think what's Coleman 64, Kamara 9, the most expensive at 9,500. They're both in pretty damn good spots. Coleman, to me, even relative to his price point, I don't think the ceiling is as immense. Alvin Kamara is just, I mean, we've seen it time and time again, and I do think that volume, which I always question with him, should be ramped up. I mean, it goes without saying they need this game extremely badly. This is a big one, and it's a tough one. At Atlanta's no joke, division game. They would be 0-2 in the division. That'd be a tough pill to swallow. So I do expect a potential shootout there. It's going to be a popular game, though. A lot of people will be on it.
Yeah, it will be. The other real obvious one right now, and what's sort of popping in the first runs of projections a lot is are the Eagles. Like those are all, you've got like 3 Eagles in your first sort of cash optimal. What do you think of that?
What do I think of what? The Eagles?
Yeah. Do you know, so like Jay's out, and they're priced for Nick Foles, and Carson Wentz is back. So they are all pretty underpriced for what they should do.
Yeah, certainly have some interest in the Eagles. At the same time, even with these guys out, they do spread it around. Wentz is coming back, and I expect some rust, and I expect them to do the bare minimum in terms of they want to win the game, and that's about it. So I will have pieces definitely in cash. I'm going to look to the Eagles if we get word. I know Ajayi's out. Is Sproles not playing again? Do we know that?
I don't know that.
Okay. I mean, if it's solidified that Corey Clement is just going to get an absolute monster workload, he's going to be tough to get away from in a lot of different spots.
Do you think he can even get a monster workload, though?
I think there's a situation. So what I was just talking about, how the Eagles, it seems like no matter what, they just spread it around. I think if Ajayi and Sproles are out, there's going to be a window for him to take the reins a bit. It won't be James Conner like situation. That's not what they do, but I
Well,
do
it's
think.
not what Clement can do. I guess that's what I'm more thinking. So if you look at your prototypical like bell cow back, all of them, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Melvin Gordon, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, all the guys that are getting like 70% of the rushes on their teams, every single one of them is 6', 6'1", 6'2", and 220 to 230 pounds. Corey Clement's a small guy. Like, I just don't know that you get that massive, massive workload from
But
him.
don't you think, or for me, what I would say to that is the reason for that is because over 16 weeks, 16 games, they can't handle it. But in a one-off situation, I don't think Corey Clement can have 20 carries in a week and it wouldn't kill him. Like, it wouldn't be sustainable for the Eagles long term. But if Wendell Smallwood is not the answer, I think he would take the lion's share of it. I do agree with what you're saying, of course, but I think there's that situation we're going to have to monitor if Sproles is out. Definitely.
Yeah. No, I think Clement's probably a cash play no matter what, assuming Ajayi's out, and we'll have to get back to you on that in tournaments. But Aguilar and Ertz are also like really nice values. Their efficiency should go up with Wentz over Foles, and their price for Wentz, their price for Foles, and then Indianapolis's defense, Alex Smith notwithstanding, should be terrible.
It does for me, and again, this is I haven't dug in fully. It has the makings, just gut feel of just like a sloppy 20-7 kind of Eagles win where they get it done. It's pretty comfortable, but at the same time, it's not a great game, even though on paper, when you look at it, they all seem pretty appealing. It just seems also for me that it's just with Wentz coming back, there could be some rush. They haven't looked great in general. They're certainly banged up. Maybe they lean a little on that defense, lean a little on that running game, and not have the best game in terms of stackability. There's pieces, but I don't know how heavy I'll be on the Eagles together in certain lineups.
Yeah. No, I think that does make some sense. Anybody you like, if you're, whatever, anybody that stands out to you to start from a game stacking perspective, do you want to get there, or have you not gotten that far?
I mean, I certainly haven't thought overly far. I haven't really looked at like what's the feasibility. But first glance, I actually, and because I think some people have them dead and buried, and maybe they are, I have some Seahawks interest. And that's something I'm not sure how many people are going to look to. But Russell Wilson still, to me, has the ceiling. He's going to have some bumps and bruises. I know Dallas has got some push up front. Lawrence, very good. But at home, licking their wounds, I might have some exposure there that maybe other people won't.
Yeah, and the point is with Russ, like I played him a ton last year. It wasn't just the offensive line. Like Russ wasn't, is not playing as well as he did a couple of years ago.
And he holds the ball. Like part of it, I know he's got some offensive line issues. He really does hold the ball for a long time.
Yeah, and he'll get out of the pocket even if he's got the offensive line sucks, no doubt, but and the play calling looks really bad. It's like there was really ugly. Why it was like, why are you running on first and second down every time? Like the Bears they know it's coming. You're not stopping it. Well, the Amukamura pick six, that wasn't the offensive line's fault. That was Russ Wilson just misread the coverage. But the point is, this is again, I like Russell Wilson is one of my favorite players, and because of his fantasy potential, even though his days as one of the best 3 or 4 quarterbacks is probably over. I need to deal with that with like Kirk Cousins, who I have a hard time with because he's such a bad real life quarterback, but he puts up amazing fantasy numbers. Russell Wilson's the other end of that, or it is the same case, and I should probably be able to get down with a little more Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair, but we'll see. Do you want to? I know we got the 3 fellas tomorrow. Do you want to talk a little golf before? I know we're going to skedaddle in a little bit. Did anything really change for you? I know.
Nope.
No.
Nothing yet. I mean, I haven't even looked at it since yesterday. Like, I'm going to build this afternoon, and I'm going to get down to business a little bit more. But
Yeah, I'm the same way. I really think the best way for me to sum up golf is worry more about the pricing and things like that. Don't build to 50,000. And if you make a team that's somewhat viable, that's somewhat unique, you've done your job in this type of week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that is true for sure. Michael J. Fitch in the chat did say that that Football Outsiders does explain it pretty well, and I think that's right. I think they do a pretty good job explaining the concept of it. I'm just saying, like the actual pieces of information that go into it are not available. So that's all. And then he also said the Giants and Seahawks are the same. Garbage. Not necessarily not with you there.
They're bad. I think the Seahawks have a little hope, whereas the Giants, I don't see many ways that they're not just garbage. But the Seahawks could be bad. I mean, I have not. That's possibly one thing. I bet the under on the Seahawks total wins this year, and I feel pretty good about that so far. Certainly.
Yeah, I don't think they're as bad as everyone. I think that at the beginning of the year, they were one of those teams that, like, because of their reputation, the public was still fine with. Their over-under came out a little high, and they became the very popular, sharp take of saying they're going to be trash and they're going to completely fall apart, which, as usual, DFS Twitter turned into they're awful. The Seahawks are dead and buried. I think they're going to be fine. Like, they're just a mediocre team now. They're not going to be horrible. They're certainly not what they used to be.
It's just where you're judging them from. They're not what they have been in a long time. And if you accept them as mediocre, that's pretty fair. I think for a lot of people, that's a huge garbage downturn for them.
Right. And the big thing, it's not really even the secondary. Like, people thought, Sherman's gone and Chancellor's gone, but it's more, to me, like, what really makes something like that work is the line. And last year they had four, like, it was so it was Cliff Averill, Sheldon Richardson, Michael Bennett, and I'm forgetting the fourth guy. They only have one of those four guys this year, and they had four monsters on the defensive line, like four guys who can win one-on-one matchups. And, like, if you've got that, that's just really tough to stop, and it makes life a lot easier for your secondary. We've mentioned this a lot on this show. It doesn't really matter how good your secondary is. Like, the wide receiver has a massive advantage. They can't hold coverage for 7-8 seconds. So the Seahawks last year looked really good.
What else is chat saying? Any questions in there?
No, I'm trying to watch. It's little of this, little of that. I like Deshaun Watson this week, actually. I will say that.
That's interesting. I've seen his name come up in a few spots. Yeah, I don't know. The Texans are just, God, I'm not a Bill O'Brien fan, and that really just taints everything. But, great matchup with the Giants. The Texans D, I hope they're going to be very popular, but I hope they rebound after last week, which was a really poor showing, especially on the DFS side.
Yeah, it definitely is. No, I like Deshaun a lot. I think that the thing with him, the Texans have a really bad offensive line, and he's just not that good. Like, he was playing way, way over his head last year. The ACL, I'm sure, is part of it, but I think it's more just natural regression. He was averaging a touchdown every 1.7 throws, I think it was last year. It was, just kidding. But it was, it was sort of Mahomesian what he was doing, but he was making bad decisions. Mahomes hasn't really, like, at least so far this year, he hasn't made a lot of bad decisions. It's 2 games, so whatever.
His only decision is who to throw the touchdown to, as they're wide open down the field, and he's just throwing dimes.
But Deshaun Watson, I think, is one of those guys that, like, really struggles with decision making when he doesn't have time to throw. So him with a decent pass rush in his face is going to be ugly. And, like, to be fair, that Texans offensive line will make mediocre pass rushes like the Patriots look like decent pass rushes. The Giants have no pass rush. He's got Fuller back, which, as much as I'm not a big Will Fuller fan long-term, like, that guy is so goddamn fast. I think that he'll be.
He caught one last week. Yeah. Every week. It's unreal.
So yeah, I'm buying a little bit of Deshaun Watson this week. He's another guy. He's not a particularly good real life quarterback, but damn, when he's a fantasy guy, when he's on, it's unbelievable as a fantasy guy. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any other takes? We didn't talk about Josh Gordon. Do you care about that?
No, I don't think there's much to say. It's a good move for any team because there's no downside. Like you're
Right.
swapping a fifth and a seventh at worst. Okay.
Do you think he'll? What do you think from a football standpoint? Do you think it'll make sense? Do you think it'll fit? He'll fit in there, or
Not really, no, to be honest. I don't expect it to make a great impact on the Patriots, but there's the potential, and that's what you're doing it for. If it keeps, I mean, you would know better than me, but if he's good enough where it keeps them honest or more honest of Gronk and Edelman, then he's doing his job.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I don't think Gordon himself is going to do much of anything
neither do I.
except pull another safety away from the middle of the field and those seams. Like if Gordon is running down the left side and there's a safety back there that has to pay attention to him, so he's not worrying about Gronk who's running up on the hash marks on the right side. That's juicy. You're going to get Edelman back soon, so he'll if Gordon can again pull some help away, give Edelman more space to work with, Gronk more space to work with. Hogan doesn't have to be a number one receiver. He's really struggled with that so far. I don't know. I think it's the spacing idea. Again, we talk about that a lot. It's just we had last year. Cooks was a really good. He was the floor spacer. Philip Dorsett and Cordero Patterson are fast, but people don't respect them like that. So they're not going to draw two people downfield. Josh Gordon should. I think you can just have Josh Gordon out there and be like, "Yo, dude, just run at the end zone. We'll throw to you. We'll launch two bombs at you a game."
If they can keep him honest, it would be a huge deal. I don't know. I mean, it's the Patriots. They seem to do things that I think are like most people. They do things where it's like, why wouldn't a team just roll the dice? Because what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. I do think there's a really significant chance that if he screws up even a little bit, they'll just be like, because they don't really tolerate that kind of stuff. So I don't think they'll let him. I don't think he's a diva or anything like that.
But I'm just saying it's a borderline free roll on their end.
Yeah, and they get a pick back if he doesn't stick.
That's what I'm saying. It's so what's the difference? Like if he does something stupid, they'll cut him, and the Browns give him a seventh, and you move on.
And that's literally a free roll because the difference between a first and a third round pick is significant. The difference between a fifth and a seventh round pick is nothing. Those are all just scratch tickets. Yep. After the fourth round, pretty much, it's just, hey, let's see what happens. So
yeah. We'll say. Like I said, I don't think he's going to make a big impact, even in the short term, or it's just not something I see. But as we just talked about, if he opens it up for the other real weapons there, that's massive. Not only from a fantasy perspective.
Yep, and it's worth reiterating again. Like he's not, Michael Wilmoth in the chat says Gordon will stop doing drugs and finally learn a playbook after 19 catches in 5 years. Lol. Like no one's saying that that's going to happen. I don't expect him to learn the playbook. I don't expect him personally to be like a fantasy thing, but it's almost like adding a piece to the offensive line where like that guy's not putting up stats, but he's helping out everyone else. And I think there's a big potential for Gordon just stretching the field a little bit, and then Edelman coming back. Like the Pats offense could be pretty monstrous.
It reminds me kind of, I know we've talked a little NBA today. It's kind of just like having a guy in the corner who's a 3-point threat so much that you can't sag on that side. And although
it's not kind of like that, that's exactly
and
what it's like.
Impacts. You're not going to see the stats particularly with that guy, but these other guys that can ISO now and don't have to worry about the help, that's massive. And if that's what they get, that's a big boost.
Yeah. 100%. So we'll see. Whatever. Yeah. Anything with the Jets happen for you? You're excited? I'm just kidding.
They're fine. They just need to relax. Everyone, like with this Darnold stuff, he's fine. He looks like he's going to be very competent. Just let him be. Don't worry about it. They're not going anywhere. Don't get him hurt. Don't do anything stupid. That's it.
Fair enough.
You see the Bills spread?
Oh, the Vikings. Yeah, it's like 29-12 is the projected score according to Vegas.
Survivor pools. Like if you're bold and you think somehow they can weasel out, you could end your survivor pool this week if you don't have the Vikings and they ever lost.
Yeah. Plus EV bet, go contrarian.
So bad.
That is pretty funny. Um, that oh man, this is. I mean, we should talk about like GPP entry survivor pool style. Like if you so if you had 100 survivor pools, right, and 60 of them are still alive because 40 of them got killed by the Saints week 1. What would you play? Would you be comfortable playing the Bills in 2 of your remaining 60?
The Bills? No. I would just not pick that game and then hope the Bills win, and that would kill. Like, you don't need to get the game right. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, sorry. I haven't played in the survivor pool.
Just like I was
yeah, it's not like that dumb.
That would be a double bold strategy. Like, not only am I not picking the Vikings, I'm going on the other side of you people.
Yeah. So that doesn't even work because it's not like there will be bozos that don't pick the Vikings or that use them already. So yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
There's going to be a ton of people in survivor pools that are just picking against the Bills for a while. That's like what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you never know. You could load up on the Vikings and then just sprinkle on Bills money line and hedge your life.
Yeah.
But that's a tall task. Usually,
it is.
Outside of the Patriots, like, you don't see spreads in that stratosphere too often.
No, it generally doesn't happen. Yeah, 13-14 is when a team's really supposed to whip someone's ass. But this is not only 17, but it's 17 with a low over under. Like that's pretty.
Team totals under 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's 29-12 is the projected Vegas score according to the spread. That's a riot. That is very funny. Okay, do you have? I mean, you've looked at golf a little bit more than I have. I'm again going to get to it more this afternoon. I'll be around in Slack. Probably, I'm not. I mean, am I going to have a million hot takes on golf this week? Not really. But do you have any more advice? Any sort of last minute stuff on your end?
No, I mean, I think what you want to do is build to a number. Don't build to 50,000, and then just mix and match, just like any other week. It looks like off the tee is going to be important, keeping it straight. If you want to go ball striker route, I think that's completely fine. I'm going to be building like that. But more so than ever, even though it's more fun, I, like you, I'm sure, love giving out, this guy is going to top 5. This is a hot take. This is a hot take. I would be doing a disservice if I started rattling it off like that. That is why I didn't write an article with plays, because it's just not that weak. There's 30 guys. Worry about what your teams look like in terms of relation to the cap, in relation to ownership. And the other thing, and you've talked about this, it's more about how they score, because everyone in the field will get placement points. Like, if you come in 30th, you get placement points. And if you come in 18th, you get placement points. The difference is minimal. It starts to ramp up a little after that. But if you can get guys who, if you want to look to birdie or better percentage, if you want to look to kind of aggressiveness, that's fine. You want guys who are going to be able to score, maybe get some streaks, you can't really predict that, but that's the name of the game. You need that this week, obviously.
I'm with Michael Fitch about Rory taking it down. I think that'll be, I don't know. This does strike me as a Rory troll spot. I have considerably more Rory. I'm planning on having considerably more Rory than I've had in a long time.
Good. I mean, I would love Rory's just gearing up to kill the Americans in a couple of weeks. Not ideal. I, like a lot of people have said, I think JT is going to win and go back to back, which would be pretty crazy. But we all know you don't have to sell me on Rory.
And you can have lineups that start Rory JT. I plan on having some of those. I agree that JT is kind of in a vacuum, sort of the best setup. DJ at half the ownership of Justin Rose is pretty juicy.
DJ's ownership is, I think, still downtrending. Mm-hmm. That Paulina stuff is really a factor.
Yeah.
And I'm like I said, I'm one to admit this. For every time I talk about a narrative and say, DJ, this Paulina stuff, he might play terrible. There's also a chance that he's just livid and he's like, you know what? I'm going to take this out on the golf course, and he shoots 25 under. So you really don't know how a guy's going to react.
There's also a chance that DJ goes out there and DJs because, like, what is he most famous for? Being, like, a little vacuous, right? The guy does not have issues with pressure because he doesn't seem to understand that
He
pressure.
doesn't comprehend that this is a problem in his life.
This has got to be a Twitter poll, whatever thing. We got to get into this someday. This is a popular Slack conversation we've had, but sort of the cross sport comparisons. Our buddy Rifo18 was, I think, the first guy I ever remembered. He said something on the Insider Sports back in the day. Rifo and Tim, our buddy Fantasy Golf Man, were like the golf touts at Fantasy Insiders, which is a board I used to hang out at. Lofty and Dan used to work there, blah, 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 blah. But he one time said that Phil was like Brett Favre. And so I just immediately latched on, which I think is an amazing comparison. I have latched onto that, and like the last 3 years have been way into it. And my Dustin Johnson one is Dustin Johnson is Manny Ramirez is like the most proud of one I've ever been. It's just this guy who is, preternaturally gifted and so dumb that he doesn't understand. Like Manny Ramirez would never get rattled because he just didn't understand. Like, hey, it's the bottom of the 9 to 2 out or what. He just like went out there and did his job. I kind of think DJ's like that. Now, relationship issues can be a whole nother story, but I don't know that he's gonna. I don't know that he's gonna get hit by the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he never does on the course. It's just anyone's guess is as good as anyone else's in how big of a deal this is. We also, we're reading this through Twitter sphere. Like maybe there is no situation and it's not what it seems. Who knows?
I think there's some. I mean, have you seen on Twitter the Instagram post that Paulina Gretzky has made?
Yeah, no, there's something there, but how Dustin? I don't know. I just think people make it's not even too big a deal because I'm one to do that. I just think that we don't know exactly what it translates to. The result of that could be a net positive for DJ in this specific week. We really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll attribute, no matter, that's the other thing, and I'll be the first to admit this. If DJ goes out and comes in 22nd, every single person will be like, well, he's dealing with this stuff. And it's like, maybe he just had a bad week.
Yeah. The bottom line with this week in particular is if your tout is out there being like, we touted this, we hit the lock button on anything, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
You should find a new tout. Because you should not have
said that. JT, lock it up.
Yeah.
You
should not be that convicted about anything this week.
No, you should be focused on what you can control. And what you can control is not being, I would venture to say, and I don't know the numbers on this. I'll ask as a question, what percentage of people you think use 50,000?
I bet it's still, let's say 49.7 and up, because that is sort of the reasonable threshold, right? I think the average person when I make normal golf lineups, usually if I've got like $400 or $500, I start to be like, let me see if I can do something here. So I think that
99% of mine are like that, 4,700 and up.
Yep, me too. 49. So 49.7 and up, I think will still be 65, 70%, something like that.
And that's what you can control right off the top. If you can get away from 65% of the lineups without any players automatically, and that's a win in itself. And that's I think the best advice you're going to get for a 30-man non-cut. Like, everyone is worrying about dupes with ownership and stuff. Well, if 65% are going to do this one thing, don't do it. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And it's similar to a normal week where it's just 50K or 49.9. Like on a normal week in the milli or something, like 50-something% use 50K flat. You can be unique just by leaving $100 off. This week's a little different, but it's the same concept.
Mm-hmm. Chat's having some fun with the Manny DJ stuff. I'm telling you, it's so fun to think about that. But
it's true.
It is.
Phil Mickelson.
Phil and Favre, dude, amazing. Rocket arm, the gunslingers. Like
Ernie McCracken, though, he reminds me so much of him from Kingpin. Like it's scary. That is Phil, because everybody loves Phil, and he is a questionable character.
Yeah. He's actually just a degenerate scumbag. Like Phil would have fun with us in Vegas. Phil should come play throw the poker chip at the ice bucket for $10 a throw game with us in Vegas. He would love it.
pure buckets. Don't forget that.
Don't forget who ended up sinking it. So we almost missed this. Whatever, we got to wrap it up. But we almost missed a dinner reservation in Vegas because we were playing this game where we were trying to throw a poker chip into an ice bucket from across the hotel room, and it was harder than we thought it was going to be. And we were saying like $10 a throw. So like each time there were 3 of us playing, and each time another person. Every time you made another throw, so every round it was another $30 went into the pot. And it ended up taking like, I don't know, 18 or 20 throws or something like that. And it got to be a pretty substantial pot. So,
and I couldn't hit anything, but then I sunk it. Pure justice.
Mm-hmm. I won the big pot.
Yeah.
You won the first one. Yeah. You had that was the landed on the ironing board. Whatever. Right. Well, didn't you land it on the ironing board and I hit it in the ice bucket?
Yeah, there was some, that was fun. It's always fun to gamble on random things.
Yeah. All I know is Jacob got skunked. And he was probably the favorite in both of those. So took his money. All right. Which he then won back from us in the watch guessing game, didn't he?
Yes.
Whatever.
All true.
Good times. Good times. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Josh, we're happy to have you home. Dan, thanks for filling in. Dan, we'll talk to you soon anyway. EMAC, thanks for popping around. We had a sighting in the chat.
Oh, very cool. Tomorrow, we're not on at 2:30. Just so everyone is clear. Wait and stop on in before the NFL game, 7 p.m. We're adding the 3rd member of the team. Lofty will be here. We'll be talking NFL, taking you up to lock. It's going to be fun.
It is. All right. This was Osmo.com from A to B. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you tomorrow night.